Alright, I'm gonna go with you. Wait, what? What? What?!
Yeah, you could probably say that things have escalated a little bit since the start of my friend's PvP server. I know this was supposed to just be some friends goofing around in Minecraft, but when my friends backstabbed me and murdered me over 3 months ago, things got a little bit personal. And so my quest for vengeance began. I did post a video a few weeks ago about the bounded SMP, and it was just essentially me murdering everyone, but what I didn't show was Bell, the owner of the server, and a man who was supposedly my friend, murdering me while I was AFK in the first 30 minutes of the server. If I was a normal person, probably not a big deal. But I am literally a psychopath, and you can be damn sure I was going to make him pay for his trespasses against me. Some of you may have already seen a few of bellistic's many pathetic attempts to end my rule of terror over his server. His first one was actually 3 months ago, when Bell spent over 8 hours designing and creating a trap with nearly 30 instant damage potions designed purely to kill me. And yeah, he did manage to trick me into going into his trap, but he forgot that I wasn't trash at this game, so ultimately his trap failed. But Bell's trap wasn't the real reason that this date was so important. It was actually also the beginning of the end for him and his allies. Let me explain. In the 3 weeks leading up to this trap, I had been spending hours every day searching for Bell's base. I had tried a ton of different methods, including strip mining across the entire map perpendicularly to Bell's strip mines, which I had found the direction of by analyzing the cobblestone for this L pattern that shows which direction is north. I also had tried running along the surface and watching for spikes in the entity counter, a technique that I had learned in my many years of playing factions. And I even tried analyzing all of Bell's videos for hours upon hours to glean some sort of useful information. But honestly, nothing was working, and the sad truth for me was that no matter how hard I tried, there was just no way for me to get lucky enough to find a hole in the ground dug by someone who was so paranoid that I would find it, he would literally log off or go invisible whenever I was online. And it was at this moment that I realized, if I couldn't find Bell's base in Minecraft, maybe I could use a technique that was different. Something that was developed by the smartest minds in history. Math, baby! I didn't spend 6 years of my life learning trigonometry and algebra for nothing. If I was taught it in high school, then I was damn well gonna use it. My plan was perfect. I would make a graph of all the known places that Bell had been seen, and then I would use it to project the perfect location for his base. And yeah, maybe I don't remember everything from my sophomore year of high school, but Desmos does. So I pulled up the calculator that carried me through high school, and I got to work putting in a multitude of formulas to find the exact location of Bell's base. To simplify this process, I started off by making a 3000 by 3000 unit square to represent the entire server. But I was way too lazy to search the entire map, so I started plugging in every single possible coordinate that could lead me to Bell's base. There were actually almost 60 points that I initially had, but only 8 would be useful and just 3 would be key to finding Bell's base. The first critical point that I used was the location where Bell and Shadow worked with villagers at this point in his second video. Even though Bell had cut out most of his journey to make his location untraceable, I still had a trick up my sleeve. Ally Shadow Wolf was also recording during this time, and we were able to match audio clips from her video to Bell's video to ultimately find out nearly exactly how long Bell took to leave this point and to get to his base. I estimated how far Bell had traveled by timing the fastest speed a bow could travel and creating 2 circles around his initial point, one representing the furthest he could have traveled and one representing the closest he reasonably could have traveled. I was also able to eliminate the area under this point for 2 main reasons. First, based on the direction that Shadow told me Bell left the villager point, it wouldn't have made much sense for him to turn around and go in the opposite direction. Secondly, and more evidence-based, all of these points are villagers that would have been closer to Bell's base and therefore easier for him to use if his base was anywhere under this line. On that same train of thought, because of 2 villages located in these areas, it just wouldn't have made much sense for Bell's base to be anywhere in this area or this area. And just like that, I had narrowed down the location of Bell's base from the entire map to just 2 manageable chunks. But if I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. And I still had one key piece of information. See, I pretended to hunt Bell during the time of the trap, but in reality, that was just an act to hide a much more important goal. To encourage him to just run a little bit faster so that when he got to his base and I stopped my stopwatch, my distance reading would just be a little bit more accurate. However, this reading was much more difficult than the prior because I knew that Bell was walking at least part of the time, and also because there was a lot less water in the direction of his base that I could use to calculate consistent travel speed. So I actually gave myself a little bit of extra cushion and tried to calculate the furthest and closest away that Bell's base could have possibly been from the trap. After all of this, it seemed that if my calculations were correct, finding Bell's base would be a breeze. But there was still one trick that I could use to find the exact location. It's a technique that I have now coined raid searching. I started off by going to a pillager outpost and killing a raid captain in order to acquire the bad omen effect. Because I knew that Bell had a villager breeder in his base, theoretically, if I walked near his chunks with his village in it, a raid would start. So I put my plan into action, and it wasn't long until I found his base. Unfortunately, at this point, I still hadn't convinced myself to create videos, and I wasn't recording much at all. This kind of meant that I didn't record this generally epic moment. But after I found its location, I quickly found the exact entrance because of a suspicious dirt block placed directly next to a birch tree that had clearly recently been mined. Now that I knew where Bell's base was, you'd think all that I'd need to do is kill him the next time he logged on, but it wasn't that simple. Bell had been running and hiding and trying his hardest to kill me in generally the cheapest ways possible, and this had become personal. I wasn't just going to kill him, I was going to completely destroy him.
Yeah, so, no, I called this meeting to talk about our duel.
For about 6 weeks, I had continued to fake my search for Bell's base. Why? Well, I didn't yet know the best way to remove him from the server, but I knew that if I was patient and bided my time, revenge would be handed to me on a silver platter. And holy heck was I right about that. When Bell challenged me to a duel, I immediately started scheming. The rules were super simple. 1. Only 6 totems each. 2. No killing each other before the duel. And 3. Each of us would carry all our collected heads in our inventory during the duel. Now you might think that this is way skewed in Bell's favor, because I had collected most of the server's head at this point, while he only had mine, but my head was so valuable that this was easily worth the risk. Also, I was 100% confident in winning the duel, and I didn't even intend on bringing the heads in the first place. The only issue was that Bell only agreed to duel me if I wagered all of the heads on the server, and there were 5 new players on the server who I hadn't even met yet, some of whom Bell was going to great lengths to protect. But I knew that this was a perfect opportunity. Not only did I have the chance to get Bell's head, I also had the chance to get my own head back. So I pulled out my sword and got back to work killing the rest of the server. However, this time was different from my last video. I had a time limit. The duel was in just 1.5 weeks and I had to collect 5 new heads before this opportunity passed me up. In addition to my strict time limit, I also knew that the majority of incoming players would be wary of me and keep their bases well hidden because they had already seen Bell's videos. If I was going to complete this task, I would have to employ all of my knowledge, hard work, trickery, and luck.
Oh, so you really did just log on to up and kill me, didn't you?
Burnby was the first of the new players to meet his demise. I was fortunate enough to log on when he first joined the server, and I rushed to spawn hoping that I would be able to deal with him quickly. But unfortunately, he was aware of my tactics and was able to escape spawn. But I had an idea. The first step I took was to convince Burnby to hide from me. Ideally, he would just dig a hole in the ground and crouch. I wanted him to do this for one reason. I needed him to not make any progress until nighttime. So I used every psychopathic tactic I could think of to convince Burnby I was right on his trail. And it worked. He shored himself up in a hole and was unable to make any progress purely because of the fear I invoked in his soul. I knew he was so terrified of me at this point that it would be nearly pointless to search for him. So instead I just turned around and went back to spawn, hoping that I could arrive before nightfall. As soon as the server switched to night, I convinced Burnby to leave his hole by leaving the server and telling him that I gave up. But of course I hadn't. In reality, I was just waiting for the opportune moment to strike.
I drowned.
Oh, you
Back
drowned?
to Respawn Island!
Guess what,
Yeah!
kid?
No. No.
Yeah!
No. No.
Get out of here.
No!
Next up was Tiger. Tiger Strong was actually one of the most important kills on the server because she was closely in cahoots with Bellistic and he was doing nearly everything in his power to protect her. But you can't stop me, and you can't hide from me. I don't care what you try and do, Bell, I'm gonna win it every time. So the two of them spent so much time planning the best way to defend Tiger, and she spent so much time hiding from me, that they both underestimated one key point. They thought I was working on my own. But in reality, one person has been on my side ever since the server started. TRFMR Prime, better known as Chaos, has been working for me ever since I blew up his house, murdered his brother's dog, and killed him over 30 times. You might be wondering why someone would ever work with me after I did that to them, but that's the wrong question. I killed Prime and blew up his house because he was working with me. The reason I killed his brother's dog was so that no one would ever expect him to be on my side. I needed him to be entirely under the radar so that he could accomplish missions for me that I could never even consider attempting. With his help, all I needed to do was wait for Tiger to fall for the trap that I had laid out for her.
Here we go. It's almost bad. That was anticlimactic, but it worked.
Unfortunately, at this point, things only got more difficult. Early on, I had lucked into 2 other players, Will and Dara's, shared base when I was searching for a separate structure, but because of an information leak, they had discovered that I had found their base and relocated in an unknown location. This was a disaster, considering that Will and Dara had only logged on 1 time since the duel had been announced, and it was at a time that I wasn't on to kill them or stop them from moving. Things were looking grim. But I am way too much of a sweat for something like this to throw off my plans. And as soon as I heard about the information leak, I got on the server and began searching for a new base, starting off by searching thoroughly within 1,000 blocks of their original base. Crazily enough, while I didn't find their base, I somehow lucked out and managed to find the last remaining player who I had not killed apart from Will, Dara, and Belle. She happened to be online when I found her, so I wasted no time in executing her and adding her head to my collection.
Be reverse curious.
What's reverse curious?
Uncurious. Or
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Oh god.
Thank you. All right,
No.
there we go.
are you?
And just like that, I only had 2 more heads to collect before the duel. But these 2 would be my hardest by far, and I only had 2.5 days to complete the task. On top of that, Will and Dara were historically the least active players on the server, meaning that there was a chance that they just didn't log on before the duel. Thankfully, I knew that I'd have at least 1 chance to kill them. See, Bell has this awesome thing he does with all the new players in the server, where he pulls them into a call and gives them a quick intro for his videos. And I knew that not only had he not done an intro with Will and Dara, he absolutely had to do an intro before we dueled for his Bounded SMP series, meaning that they would have to be on at least 1 time before my deadline. With this in mind, I decided to go all in and put everything I had into finding their base. This was even harder than finding Belle's base though, because not only did they just dig a hole in the ground, I also didn't have any clues from Belle's videos to help me find their base, and they had only been on a couple of times, meaning that there were no tricks or traps to hunt them down. So I got to work on the brute force method. About 6 hours into my search, things started to seem futile. But I knew I had to push through, so I searched for 13 more hours. 19 hours in though, my search seemed hopeless. I had searched over half the map, but I could have easily passed over their base, and if my suspicions were correct and they had just dug a hole in the ground, it would be nearly impossible to find them even if I had the general location of their base. At 8:30 p.m., the night before the duel, Will and Dara logged onto the Bounded SMP to do their intro with Belle. With just a 30-minute window to find and kill both Will and Dara, things were looking hopeless. But then, after 20 hours of searching, the impossible happened.
Bro, I can't believe I've done it twice. Like, holy cow. Holy cow, bro. It took so long this time. Please tell me this is it.
Who's basically?
Did you find Bells?
But I wasn't out of hot water yet. Why? Because even though I had found their base, I knew that they were planning on logging off wherever they were doing their intro with Belle, and I was running out of time. But I did have one tiny little plan in my back pocket. See, right when Will and Dara logged on to do their intro with Belle, I asked Prime to go over to their old base to make sure that they didn't return to pick anything up. And on a complete stroke of luck, that's exactly where they went to do their intro with Belle.
Yes! Let's go!
Unfortunately, the following events took a 6,000 word script to explain, and to be honest, there is absolutely no way I'm reading 6,000 words in one video, so I'm just gonna have to leave a cliffhanger here. If you guys want to find out what happened in the duel, which was freaking insane, might I add, you're just gonna have to subscribe so you can find the video when it comes out. Also, subscribing really helps support my channel, especially when I'm this small, so every single person that does subscribe is helping me start my new journey and will become a key part of my channel. And for some reason, YouTube says 50% of my views are from non-subscribers, which is just nuts to me, that anyone who isn't subscribed would watch my content in the first place, so thank you for being here, right? But either way, thanks for coming, guys, and next time you're going to see the bloody path I took to becoming the Emperor on this server.